Okay, here you're looking at George's 1965 Chevy pickup. And like most Chevy pickups from the 60 to 66, it has rust down in the right rear of the front fender. So today we're going to show you how to take this fender off, do the rust repair, and put it back on. Now the first thing we're going to want to do when we've got this fender on is check and see how this all lines up right here. If this is off, we're going to want to take care of that when we're repairing the patch panel. Now this here lines up pretty decent. We're just doing a nice decent daily driver on this. You can see that the line right here matches, so when we put our patch panel on, we want to make sure it doesn't go down too far or go down up too high. Alright, so we're going to take our WD-40 and we're going to spray down all our bolts from the inside first. And as far as wrenches, you should only need a 1/2 inch, maybe some 9/16 to take this fender off. Okay, start by doing the inside of these front ones right here, putting WD-40 on them. And normally there's a bolt that's hiding right up in the front here, so don't forget that one. And get these babies back here. Okay, right now the top bolts, we're just going to loosen them up. We're not going to take them off all the way, because when we're taking off the lower bolts, if all your upper bolts are taken off already, then the thing's just going to flop over on you unexpectedly and bend the bottom part of the fender. So we're just going to loosen the ones on top, then we're going to take the ones off on the bottom. When you're unbolting the cowl and the fender, make sure that wherever you see a fender spacer, you know where it goes and put it back the same place, assuming everything lines up. You're going to run up against rusty nuts, so what you want to do sometimes is you unscrew it as far as it'll go, you lube it up with WD-40, and you screw it back in. This will allow the dirt on the end that's collecting in the nut to fall off and hopefully get some more WD-40 into your nut. Then you can go ahead and unscrew it and just keep doing that a couple of times, and hopefully you can save your threads. Now I want to determine how bad my rust is and how far up it goes. You can see that the majority of course is right here, but we've got some little bit of flaking going on up here. So we're going to grind this off, make sure we don't have any Bondo or weird stuff underneath there, and see exactly how large of a patch panel we need to go or not. Even though the patch panel comes all the way up to here, you don't necessarily want to use that much. You only want to use the amount that is necessary to bite into healthy metal when you're doing your welding. Alright, we know this lined up well with our door. So making sure that the other one goes in the right place, what we do is go ahead and put the tape measure right on there, come up further than we know we're going to need to go, and mark off so I've got 12 inches from this line here to this line here, marked at 12 inches. Now when I put my patch panel back on, it should probably stop somewhere in this neighborhood here, and then I'll be able to measure, make sure I'm keeping my line. Okay, the mud flap is held in with these funny looking little clips. You take those off, is just put a screwdriver in the middle of them, and then spread them apart and pull them out. So you can see this is what it looks like here. When these two top ends are squeezed together, it pushes the bottom end out, and that's how it holds on. So simply separate the ends. Okay, so right here you can see your pitting. So we're going to go about an inch above that. And we're all looking good right through here. So I'm just going to do a small patch panel about the size of this right here. When you're cutting out your patch panel, you want to make sure that the brace that's behind here, that you cut out this piece right here, this edge, past the edge of the brace. If you were simply to have a really small hole down here and you were going to cut out this right here and the brace was behind it, you don't have a way to hammer from behind. And it's best to do that because when you heat up the metal with the welding, of course, it will shrink. So if we can get behind this piece right here, we'll be able to hammer, dolly, and keep this with a minimal amount of filler needed. Here's our brace. It's looking good. Doesn't look like we're going to need to replace it. We'll be able to see better once we take it off. And then this area here we're going to want to clean up because we're going to be doing our welding up around this area here. So it's going to be easier to get your sander or wire wheel and clean this area up before you cut it, not after. Okay, what I've done is actually cut out a smaller section that I'm probably going to need. This edge right here, you want to take off nice and ginger-like, and the same thing down here. You don't want to bend this lip or bend this lip down here either. So we'll cut our large piece out. We'll take all this dirt out. This is, of course, why it rusts in the first place. And then we'll go ahead and gingerly take off these edges here. Alright, we can see that we don't have any actual rust through, but it's pretty pitted and pretty ugly. The bolt down here, the nut down here, it gets pretty rusted up, so I'm just going to go ahead and replace this right. Now we want this hole to be in the same position just like we want this edge to be in the same position. So what we're going to do is just like on the front, we measure from the center of the hole on up. When we're going to replace this panel, it's generally best not to do the patch panel and this panel at the same location. You typically want to go up just a little bit more. It helps keep everything else in line. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut this piece off since I don't necessarily need it anymore. And you do have the entire piece, but it's not really necessary for this one. So I've just cut the entire piece off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to about right here. This way when I put my new patch panel in, my new brace, I'll be able to butt it up right against the original line right here, and it'll help line everything else up. Okay, so I'm actually marking this further up than 9 inches. I'm going to cut it off, and then we're going to trim it nice and neat. Keep trimming and cutting and trimming and cutting until you get the piece to match up nice and neat. Make sure that you have a straight edge here. Okay, now we can go ahead and hit this with a couple of spot welds. We're not going to fully weld it up yet. We'll wait until we get done with everything, and after we're sure it's where we like it, then we can finish off our welds.